All right. Good morning. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome. It's it's a beautiful July week, and it's a fantastic Tuesday. It's July 23rd, year. Yeah, we're still kicking it in 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. Listen to the Crushing Iron podcast, and this is episode 784.
Yes, it is, and it's a beautiful morning here. You'll be happy to know I already got in a sup board.
Yeah, and threw in a nice little dig. This is it wasn't quite the power bar dig you made 6 years ago on the Trace at that infamous rest stop, but it was somewhat close as we were finishing up our very serious, in-depth, and strategic pre-show meeting. Mike says, "All right, before we get started, I gotta take off my sweatshirt," and just lobbed it in there as if I didn't know it was perfect weather up there, as it always is on the water up in Wisconsin. It'll be a beautiful weekend too. In Madison, we've got our C26 Camp in Madison. Looks like a typical Madison weekend. Beautiful weather, sunshine, cool mornings, perfectly warm midday and afternoons. A lot of time on the water and great time with friends. So looking forward to hearing how that camp goes. And one of our favorite, if not one of, and not it's my one of the top 3 favorite cities in Madison, and to go and spectate races. And speaking of races, good God, was it a busy weekend. It was a jam-packed weekend. You had Lake Placid, which was, yeah, I think we say this every year, and then I know that I specifically forget just how relentless that course is, and how much of a beast the bike course is, and more importantly, how much of a beast the run course is. Just such a hard course. And you had Ohio, which was, I heard, just was spectacular weather. Then you had Oregon, which is, a jet speed of a swim. And they had, I heard, like severe thunderstorms on the bike, and then pretty good run weather. And then you had a bunch of other races in between, and you got Maine this weekend, other races, and it's full on. Next thing you know, we're going to be smack down middle of August, and saying next month is Nice, and next month is Chattanooga, and next month is Wisconsin, and next month is Maryland. It's just that time of year. So again, super pumped for everybody. And again, just always a great reminder, I think, and maybe that'll even be kind of the where we go with the podcast day, of just how unpredictable everything is with racing and preparation, and what gets you to the start line, and how you're able to kind of finish things off. But yeah, it was a fantastic weekend. And the same way as a coach, it's always kind of a roller coaster of emotions when you're tracking athletes each and every Saturday and Sunday, basically 50 weeks out of the year.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, especially the fulls, because you always get up, and that started an hour ahead of me, so it was perfect. And by the time I checked in, it was kind of, the swim was over. And then, I went about my day, and I did my workouts, and I mowed my lawn, and I went to the store, and I did all this kind of stuff, and they're still on the bike. And then, by the time the run, you're sitting around late at night, and I actually turned on the live feed. Just sometimes I'll turn that on if I'm still up and hanging around, and watch some of my athletes come across the finish line. I caught several, and I was just kind of not paying attention. I was just trying to time when they're coming in, but I had the sound up, and I'm like, that sounds like Mike Riley. Is he back in doing it now, or is that just a special occasion?
I heard it was a special occasion that he just came back.
I think he misses it.
Well, I mean, what I was going to say it sounds like a cry of relevancy. Got to stay relevant. Got more books to sell. And I know a lot of people love Mike Riley. I've never honestly cared who announced my name across the finish line.
Yeah.
I mean,
they always mispronounce my name, so it doesn't matter.
Like, now if it was like Morgan Freeman, I'm in. Somebody with like a legendary voice, or the guy. What's the guy who does the Arby's commercials, or the? I'd be all in on that too.
Oh yeah, James Earl Jones or whatever that guy's name is.
Sure,
that's not a bad. You ever heard of that? Was it Manect or whatever? When you can send somebody a question and they'll voicemail or video email back an answer, and they charge you for it. That might not be a bad idea to bring in Morgan Freeman to Ironman, and each person could pay an extra, $1,000 or something to get him to announce your name.
I mean, if I want somebody to announce my name, it's gonna be like somebody like that.
That might not
I
be a
mean,
bad idea, man.
I'm telling you,
Bring him in, and then he could probably, I bet, I don't know, 20 or 30 people. That'd be about 30 grand for him just to say a few names and fly out of town.
You can hit us up. But yeah, so yeah, apparently he was back announcing. And I know it's cool for some people. It's just that's not my jam. But yeah, it was. They had perfect weather up there too. But yeah, always a great weekend. I really truly wish that they could get like even mid 1990s cell service up there would be great. I think for the most part they're still working off like cricket flip phones up there because the cell coverage and the TV coverage was just horrendous. And obviously, not to, because I honestly think that Ironman would make that their North American championship if they knew they could actually televise it better than your grandma's and 1984 Sony television with rabbit ears, because that's basically what the coverage was like. It was you knew it was coming and they prepped you for it, but it was still just it made it unwatchable, which was frustrating because it is such an amazing, challenging, beautiful course, and you can't see much because it's in such a remote place, which is obviously a large part of why it's such an amazing course. Like you can obviously have as many motos as you want to in Texas, on the Hardy Toll Road, which is 95% concrete with about 6 trees splattered in between for the bike course. So it would be great if they could figure that out at some point, or maybe pop some in, but outside of that, yeah, and another great day up there, and I'm glad they've extended the contract there and it could keep coming up there, because I think it's one of that and Madison, are kind of the two longest standing Ironman races in North America. Still, all the other ones have kind of bit the dust or are on pause, and so the writing's on the wall. I think at least the last year or two. I mean, I saw Ironman Wisconsin sold out, but it's 70.3 is the distance at the moment. It is very popular, and they're announcing more and more 70.3s, and they're continuing to sell out. So again, like, I think you want more options, but I think it's always great to Ironman's a business, so they're going to continue to give people what they want, and they're going to provide. If people are buying 70.3s, they're going to give you 70.3s. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, I guess that's fine. I think
Can you guess that's fine?
I just hate to see that what is the real beginning of this sport in a lot of ways losing appeal, and I think
yeah, no, I agree. I think they did it to themselves, and I think they oversaturated it.
They may have, but I also think it's got something to do with people. It's just, I don't know. People don't like the hard stuff, and
well, they ruined it when they got rid of the mass start.
That, I mean, we've always thought that was a real. I mean, how do you explain Wisconsin always going, up to 2,700 or 3,000 people, and then it started getting down to 1,500? I think it's just at least keep one, or one or two of them.
And if you don't,
I think a lot of people want that.
For sure.
It's such a spectacle. It's beautiful. The spectators want. Everybody wants it, but I don't know. I just as I keep doing these things, and they are super hard, and I always say, why the hell am I doing this right in the middle of the race? But I think a big part of it obviously is the commitment and the training and stuff like that with families, and it gets to be overwhelming. But I also think that yeah, maybe you're not going to be crushing the race or being podium bound, but I don't think I've just never thought it takes as much. Like, there's traditional plans that kind of are out there, and they it's always this 20-hour weeks during the peaks and all. I just think that's an illusion a little bit, personally.
It was definitely made popular, and I tend to agree with you that I do think that it was that triathlon had an advertising problem when you think about trying to grow a brand and a sport, and your brand is basically Ironman, which is the longest distance, most demanding, most expensive distance, and that is the household name. right? And so I think they definitely, I think they're kind of, I know USAT is trying to do a lot with kind of reversing the focus on kids in high school and juniors and draft legal. Ironman doesn't do that, so they're obviously focused on the 70.3s. But they have to lower the barrier of entry, and when you hang your hat and the biggest name in the sport is the longest distance and the most expensive one, and the bikes are stupid expensive, wheels, helmets. People are dropping $80 a canister on fuel that lasts them 2.5 weeks, you know, when they could easily just use the Saturday app and drop, make their own fuel. It's a huge issue. And so I think they're going back and trying to fix that. But I agree, because the sentiment's always, you hear more, it's not so much I can't do that. It's I don't have time for that, because they hear what's promoted is like the 20 to 25, 30-hour training weeks. And don't get us wrong, like, you see a ton of those, and you see them in professional. Even if you listen to a lot of professional athletes, they'll tell you that, their peak is in the mid 20s to low 20s. And there's a lot of age groupers that do more of that. And those are, you listen, in sport, you always hear about the outliers, right? And that's who makes the money, right? Who hang their hat on the, I did this in, the, what's his name? The Ben Greenfields of the world, who do Ironman Kona on, 6 hours a week of training, and they took in 2 almonds and a Tic Tac during the run. And then you got, other coaches who, do things and have this extraordinary, experience and race result, because that's how they did it. And now now it's for sale for all these other athletes. And it's what makes, it's marketing, right? It's marketing. Nick Barr, he's another good example. It's like it's marketing 101. And that's what's been marketed. But, it's only extreme to you if it has extreme results. And that goes positive and negative, right? You can have extremely great results on, minimum volume of training, or you could have, extreme results on 25, but you could also have extremely negative results, impact over training, which you read a lot. I was reading that, what sounds like that in our Crushing Iron Facebook group this morning, as I was kind of popping in an ask for some Q&A questions. We haven't done one in a while. We've had quite a few roll in that we can hop into in a minute, but one of them was kind of on that, these big training volumes and how exhausted you are. And I think we even kind of mentioned it around about maybe a month ago, about a lot of athletes going to 5-day-a-week workout schedules, or taking 2 days rest and periodically putting them into the week, or putting their long ride on a Wednesday and their long run on a Saturday, and like changing things up. Like, you don't have to do a long ride on a Saturday. You don't have to do a long run on a Sunday. You don't have to swim 5 times a week. You don't have to ride 3 times. You can ride more. There is an opportunity, I think, for everybody to be successful, right? And I just think there's these too many long-standing myths in triathlon in that surround the length of a taper, and and especially like books like the Be Iron Fit books, the books like that are so old and so outdated, and ask athletes to just absolutely crush themselves with these super long rides and brick runs. Like, it's a make it or break it. And we're too intelligent now. Athletes are smart enough. The software that athletes that we have the ability to use is smart enough to where you just, again, we've probably done 6 podcasts titled, in some way, shape, or form, could be titled minimal effective dose. And that's the key. And to be able to do that, and to do it well, and to do it right. It's not about more, it's about what's right. And I think but that's not, you and I had this conversation off air with someone yesterday. It was like, we kind of said, like, you're honestly, like, you need to be more expensive, because more expensive people think that that's better. Like, you need to be more expensive and more kind of flashy, because that's what people want these days. People don't want the 12-hour weeks. They want the 20-hour weeks, not because it's better for them, because they can tell people that they do it. And that's what prevents a lot of people from getting into sport. People want to have a life. Even if they don't have kids, People like their weekends. Like we got, fooled in 2020 and 2021 to thinking, back when everybody's like, this is our new normal. This is our new normal. It's not, right? Everybody's back to doing things. Everybody's back to work, back to the office. People got, they could do a ton of volume and have a bunch of free time. You weren't having to drive kids to sports, and you weren't having to do all these extra responsibilities, and you could go on a 5-hour ride during the work week and pretend like you were fake working or on a Zoom call, and you were just listening and pedaling away, doing your intervals. Like, those days are gone. And people like really value the time, right? As we kind of look at 2020 to 2022, people, I think, started to appreciate more the free time that they had to do what they want. Right. So to whatever it was, whether it was to spend time with family, whether it was to spend extra time in meditation, or to be outside, to be on the lake, to sup board on a Tuesday morning, right? To go out with friends. Like, people, I think, got reconnected with their values and what makes them tick and what they want. And it was easy then. And then when you go back to the 9 to 5s and you got more responsibilities, and your kids are back at, sports practice, and they're back at school, and you got vacations, you got travel, that stuff is now replacing your other free time you used to train. But your desire and your need and your want to still, have a life has stuck around. And so I think a lot of athletes are struggling in the sport too, which is why I think 70.3 has become so popular, is people aren't willing to give up that time anymore. They enjoyed having their weekends of hanging out with their family or their friends, or just, frankly, detoxing from the work week and re-energizing and having free time and having these full days of doing things. And so people, I think, are having a hard time with the old school thinking of more and more and more and more is better, to doing the right amount and having a full life and a great life and still being able to perform at a super high level. And that's what a lot of athletes are doing now. They've adapted, they're changing their training, they're more available, and you might gain some time or you might lose some time on a race day. You probably never know. But you're going to love life and love the process a lot more than you did before. Not sure how we got here, but we did.
Yeah. I can remember back to when, we started together, and it wasn't necessarily you, but the guys that I was training with, are you sure you want to do this? You got to be ready for 18, 19-hour weeks and all that. And I certainly wasn't, but I was up to the challenge at that time. But it was really ringing in my ears. And I don't think in the 10 years I've trained for Ironman, I've had an 18-hour week. And I was sort of rebelling against that from the get-go, you know what I mean? Like, you guys would be out going long, and I'd be like, I'm just going to go half or whatever. And you'd drag me along once in a while, and I think that was a good thing. But in essence, I'm 60 years old, and I think I don't know how much I'm going to train this year, but my long ride will probably be 80-ish miles or 4.5 hours or something, and long run won't probably be much longer than 10 miles or, whatever. And I feel like I'm pretty comfortable 13-hour guy if I want to be. You know what I mean? So I guess the point here is that I was against that from the get-go because I just didn't see I just think that burns people out so hard. And I think that's probably the main reason I can keep doing them every year, is because I don't fall into that trap. And, I'm totally the person that hopes for that perfect strike of lightning. You know what I mean? Like, I think anything's possible, and I believe in myself like that. But, I know that I'm walking a thin line sometimes if I want to do what I'd like to do, but I'm not willing to pay that price. And I think I really do think that, that adaptive training schedule and a consistency with it is much more valuable than just shredding yourself for 2.5 months during the summer and not having a life. I just think it's more effective for most people. I mean, if your life is getting to the podium and that sort of thing, and that's what you like, if you like going out and doing 6-hour rides, 5-6 times a summer, more power to you. I think that's great. But I just think a lot of people think that's just been branded in the Ironman training plan world for so long that that's the image it has. But I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way. You know, if I average 10 hours a week or 12 hours a week, that would be a shock to me sometimes. So, you know, it is what it is, man. And just, you know, it sucks to do that race. I'm not going to lie about that. But I mean, when I finish an Ironman, the feeling, the difference between that and finishing a half is just like, you know, volumes different.
I mean, I think there's, again, like when you look at, and you said it, like, you know, if your idea, and I would even say, like, if your idea is the, you know, we all have our different levels of what we consider success, right? For a race. And a lot of people, unfortunately, only use the culmination of race day as their metric for success in if my training worked or not. But another great way, and I think you alluded to it there, is the process should also be what you consider a success. That I enjoy training the whole time. That I stay healthy. Was I generally in a better mood? That I dread less workouts? That I show up to the race antsy and ready to go and having fun? You know, was my head in the right space? You know, how many periods of 1 to 2 day blocks or even week blocks did I go of feeling unmotivated and over fatigued? Like, these are all signs that a plan is working or not working. And so if you're weighing, you know, the experience, and, you know, 1 year you have, you know, your average training volume is, you know, 12 to 14 and 15 hours, you know, still fairly low for an Ironman, for, you know, compared to conventional, you know, old school, you know, promotion. And during that phase, you do a 12-15 Ironman, but you dreaded a lot of your long rides. You didn't have fun for periods. You found yourself a little over fatigued and unmotivated and just kind of disinterested, right? Just kind of ambivalent about the whole situation and the whole race. Had a few periods of that. You had a few niggles. You came down sick a few times, and you came to the race day kind of thinking, I just go and get it over. But you squeaked out at 12-15. Mm-hmm. Well, the next year you go in, and let's say you even trained the same or maybe slightly less or maybe even slightly more. And maybe the intensity is different. Maybe the format's different. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat. You know, your 12 hours could be spread across Monday through Sunday pretty evenly. You could go with the standard Saturday, Sunday, long ride, long run. You know, you could do 1 to 2 days on, 1 day off, 1 to 2 days on, 1 day off, 3 big days, 2 days off. Like, there's a million different ways. You know, long run on Wednesday, long ride on Saturday, Sunday. There's a million ways you can do it. And so the next year you change it up. You're excited to train. You're happy. You're healthy. You feel invigorated. You're excited. I know that I'm in my best spot in training when the night before a big ride, I have a hard time sleeping because I'm kind of excited.
Yeah, that's a great sign.
Right? Like, not because I'm going to go out and set the world on fire, you know, and post my KOMs for the world to see, but because I'm just generally excited about being fit enough to do it. And I'm excited for the challenge. And I know that it's part of a process that I'm in love with. And so you have a few of those days and you just feel good and you're happy and you just can't wait to get to the race, and you squeak out at 12:30. Well, which training program worked best for you? The latter one. Even if you're 15 minutes off the time before. Yeah. If you think about success as a metric only validated, you know, on race day, you're never really going to know. And I just think it's worth exploring for everyone, and even as coaches, right? You and I talk about this, you know, a lot, and we do this with our other coaches as well. The hardest thing for a coach to do is to not get stuck in what's always worked, because just because it's always worked doesn't mean there isn't a better way. And that's how, like, difficult the triathlon puzzle. And like, I had an athlete that did a 70.3 this last weekend, and I've pretty much done the same taper with him, and he's PR'd almost every 70.3 we've ever done. And this one I decided, you know what? I said, let's change it up. And let's do a shorter taper, and let's just hammer it the week before, and then do a real short 5 or 6 week taper. And we kept the swimming high and we kept the cycling high, and we kept the run not fairly high, but fairly high. Went into a race, smashed his swim PR, smashed his bike PR, didn't have nearly the run legs we would have expected, but PR'd the whole day. So he had a race PR, but his run legs weren't there. And I just told him, in my training piece, I'm going to say, you know what? The taper was probably right, but I think we probably ran a little bit too much, and your stale run legs are on me. We'll change it up next time. Still PR'd, but in a different format, in a different way, but we still learned something. And there's always a tweak to be made. And again, when you go back and as a coach, like, that's one of the most fun things here is I just had a lot of fun doing this. I had a lot of fun in this training cycle. Like, that says a lot. When you start dreading things and you start not wanting to do things and perform and get excited, something just ain't right. And so again, like when you said it, because even if you're looking to be on the podium, you can always find, and let's say you get on the podium, you can always find people who trained less and went faster. And you can also find people who trained more and went faster. Always, unless you are the number one finisher, right? You're going to find the person that finished ahead of you and right behind you may have done, let's give this some, the first person overall trains X, right? Trains 25 hours a week, and you train 20 and you got second. The guy behind you in third, you beat him by 45 seconds, but he only trains 11 hours a week. Ugh. Now what do I do? Right? That's like, there's just so many different ways to train so many people. There are some athletes that I work with, and I'm sure you do too, that I can maybe give them one intense session a week. Maybe. Because the rest of their life is so demanding and so stressful that anything other than that, and they're shredded. And so you have to give just as much aerobic volume as they can handle and see what happens, or extra rest days. And then I've got other athletes who in the past have done the 13, 14, 15-hour training weeks, and sometimes you don't know as a coach. You can look at all the data and the numbers and the results, and you can think maybe it was too much, but a lot of times you can kind of read the writing on the wall first. When an athlete 8 weeks out from a full is already hating their bike, a lot of times that's not your fault. Most times it's not your fault as a coach. It's their fault for signing up for a race that requires that. And they just don't like it. And so you can't tell if the lack of riding was because they couldn't or just they just didn't want to. But then you find out maybe you go shorter and maybe 10, 11 hours, and they go out and they crush it because they're more excited by it. And a lot of athletes will tell you, like, hey, listen, the most I can ride, the longest ride I can do is 3.5 hours for this full. Can we do it? Like, fuck yeah, we can do it. Are you going to love it the last 25, 30 miles? Probably not. And your legs are probably going to be fine. Your ass, on the other hand, is probably going to hate you, right? But I mean, you can generate enough stress and close to the same amount of kilojoules that you need for a full in a hard 3.5 hour ride. You don't have to go out and noodle around for 6. And I mean, I've seen some athletes, and this is where I hear so many people's, like, I can't wrap my brain around it either, is that they'll go out for a planned 6-hour ride on a Saturday. And they go with the group, and Sally has 2 flats, and we couldn't get it changed. And then we had to stop at to fill up at the car. And it's like an 8.5, fucking 9-hour day of being gone. Hard pass, man. Hard pass. No, thank you. Like there's your whole Saturday gone. You're one of the first days of the week, and you can re-energize, gone. And I get ready and geared up for maybe a long run. Or you can get up at 5 a.m., hammer a 3.5 hour ride, and by 9 o'clock you showered and had pancakes and eggs with the fam. You got your whole day. Like there's so many ways to be successful that athletes get trapped in longer and harder is always best, even though what's best for them even 1 year might not be best for them the second year. And coach is the same. Like we have to be, we can't, fall into the trap of just being, happy with the success that we've had. You need to be able to press on and think, you know what, this was better, and have the stones to say, to maybe push it more or roll back less. Because a lot of times you can have success, but you can still find things. And I struggle with this sometimes, especially when you see athletes that, did a ton of this, and then you get an athlete that did way less and totally outperforms them. It is, there's so many things. I know you're the same way. Like, you get done on a Sunday night after this weekend, you got, I think we had probably 15 people at Lake Placid, over 10 at Oregon, probably close to 10 at Ohio and other races. And and you have so many different results from different people and different training styles and different levels of completion. It kind of leaves you like in a total, me in total wonder. I'm like, how did you pull that off? Mm. And then sometimes I'm like, how did we not pull this off? Because there's so much to explore, which again, I think is why the sport can be so fun, and why, it's been kind of interesting to see that Ironman has been the opposite of what every other, sport has, or not sport, but marketing thing has been. It's been all about, more and more and more and more and more and more and more. That's the ticket. That's how you get better. Because I still even think like this new fad of trying to take in 160, 180 calories, an hour, or carbs, excuse me, an hour, might be great for one, but might just be absolutely horrendous for somebody else. And there's these, I don't think, we put a lot of energy and effort into mimicking or copying what a pro is doing, or what this fastest age grouper just happened to do. Now, you probably don't want to hear that they're extremely focused and dialed in and consistent all year long, right? Or they prioritize sleep and recovery and fueling, and they track things. And like, I don't want to hear about that. I want to hear about how many carbs are eaten an hour. I want to hear about, what special chain lube they're using, and, if they're waxing their chain. And I want to hear about their tubeless tires, and I want to hear about how deep their race wheels are. And I want to hear about what power meter, all these things that are, that are costly. But a lot of these athletes can just turn. I mean, that was one of the most remarkable things to me about watching Lake Placid is you got a guy like Matthew Marquardt, who was an age grouper 2 years ago. He is a freaking full-time. I think he's a med student. Like, and so to see some of these people who still have like, and Justin Reale, who was second place for a while, before he had like a mechanical, I think, and maybe actually a penalty, they were saying like he's got to be back in the office Monday morning. Like it's unbelievable to me to see these, but we don't marvel at things. Again, we only marvel at extremes, right? How little this person did, how much they did. There's the two things people are marveling at right now: how many grams of carbohydrates people can take in per hour, or how little you can take in. The Dan Plews of the world, who has an age grouper, basically crushes every single one, and is a coach to a lot of professional athletes. Although Chessie Darrow, it seems like she just moved on from him and is getting coached by somebody else now. It's like there's extremes, and the extremes are the exciting part. But it's your most marketable, your most fantastic, your most Instagram worthy, story and process and fueling should be your own. And a lot of times people don't even like try to explore that. They just do what they feel like is the right thing to do, instead of just like, listen, like, and telling people, I don't know if this is right for you. And you've always said that. I feel like you're like, I'm not telling you this is the way you should all do it, but it's worked for me. And you're a guy that's about to toe the line for what, your 8th Ironman Wisconsin in a row, or your 8th or 9th year of our Ironman distance racing in a row. It seems like it's worked for you pretty well. And I think that's a, and to me, it's not about, which again is also a trap. It's not about trying to be special for the sake of feeling special, which is also, I think, a disease right now, is just trying to be special for the sake of feeling special. Is just figuring out what you think works for you, owning it, and seeing how it incorporates and fits into your life. And because that's where the magic happens. And honestly, and one of the hardest things too is to explain to athletes, like, listen, I know you want to do 25 races this year. I get it. You want the medals, you want the t-shirts, you want your AWA status, or you want to do this, or you just like racing. But that leaves us pretty much zero time to experiment, because we're either racing or recovering or tapering. To me, one of the most fun training cycles to be in with an athlete is one where you just say, you know what, I think we need to work on this, and I think this can work for you. Are you willing to give it a shot? And 99.9% of the time, they're like, yeah, let's do it. But one of two things happens. One, they either get too disinterested and they want to change, reinvent the wheel after, 1 week. I just don't think it's working, coach. Like, we've done it for a week. But on the same accord, if they do one session and it's like the bee's knees, all of a sudden, this is the way we should train forever. It's just, frankly, it's really never either one of them. It's not that it's not working. It's not that it is working. It's that we don't know yet. And I think, again, like, that's the fun part of being a coach, right? And especially with athletes who are open-minded, is to say, like, I know this worked, and I know that we can be better. So let's try it different, instead of just doing the same thing. Oh, well, last time we did this and we were able to do this. Yeah, I get that, but I think there's a better way. Let's try and figure it out. To me, that's why the sport is so awesome, because there's so many, like, going back to the guy I was talking about with the taper, swim PR, bike PR, run wasn't anywhere close to what we knew he could do, which is what he did in Eagle Man. Still PR'd the whole race, which is the goal, right? You want to PR the whole race, but it still leaves mystery on the table. How can we now get it to where, the swim and bike and run are both PRs, or maybe the run is a little bit better, the bike's a little bit slower. The same thing. Like, there's always a puzzle to be solved. And frankly, as a coach, you put together a puzzle for an athlete, and then as soon as you're done, like on race day, and it's this full picture, as soon as it's over, which is, I find this so fascinating about puzzles, is you destroy it. You throw it back in a box and you shake it on up, and now you start over again. Like, there is no, you don't leave that puzzle out on the table and go start another one and put it next to it. You just take it, trash it, put it back in the box, start over again. And that's how I think every other, whether you're a coach or, coach or self-coach or working off a plan, finding somebody that can, again, have that, it's not courage, that's way too strong and dramatic of a word, but have the confidence to push the needle further or in a different direction, to really figure out what's best for you, and not feeling like we've already had our best, so we just kind of keep doing the same thing over and over again, or everybody else is doing this, we should do this too. Like, that's a huge, I think, people have the, triathlon is riddled with FOMO, just like everything else is. And it's like signing up for races you have no business signing up for, committing to things you shouldn't be committed to. Well, I gotta do a long ride because this person's doing a long ride. Like, there's really nothing better than, honestly, what I would love, I think, is to see is if everyone on a 70.3 and Ironman race course, every one of them, during every discipline, your back of your jersey, you had a stamp or a projection of your longest training session in each discipline. As you're passing somebody in the swim and their long swim says, 1800, and you cruise on past them as they start in the first wave. And then you hop on the bike and you cruise past somebody. It's like, I did 19 century rides, and you're like, I did 2 5-hour rides, and here I am. See you later. And then you get up on the run and you see this person walking, and you get to see their run training resume, 4 20-mile runs, 6 8-mile brick workouts, 1 walking marathon in the Ironman. Like or you see somebody who's done a long run of 12 or 13 miles and they blow past you. You love just kind of shaking your head like, what the fuck what did they do and what I'm not doing? Like, what is not working here? That's again, like, that's why your coach's job is never done. And that's why an athlete's job should never be to assume that they have it all figured out already and all the time.
Yeah.
Did you fall asleep on me or did I go too long?
That might have been one of your longest right there.
I know. Sorry about that, man.
I am still here. Yeah. I mean, it's tough to like, I agree. There's a lot of things there. I was back when you said, there was something I know what it was. Sacrifice. I just was thinking about this as sort of like, really, if you're draining yourself and overdoing it and like really, hammering all summer and whatever, and it's not fun for you, it's like you're sacrificing a whole season for one day that doesn't even necessarily turn out maybe the way you want. So that's always been weird to me, sort of like, I feel like, I'm a big kind of live in the moment in the day type of person. At least that's my agenda. It's not easy. I always try to do it and be with whatever it is. And, you talk about a 6-hour ride or a 3.5 hour long ride. Sometimes my athletes will miss a couple long rides and then I'll have to, if I could say one thing to every athlete, I think it would be, or if I could convince every athlete of one thing, it's you're better than you think you are. And I'll have these conversations with certain athletes and they can't, squeeze in those 6 hours or those 5 hours. And I'm like, well, you get to the point of, are you confident enough to finish Ironman if you had like a long ride of 4 hours or something like that? And a lot of times it's yes, but many times it's no. And these are sometimes I'll have to say is like, boy, you're putting in, 6-hour ride, hour and a half, you got 9, maybe 10 hours of riding this week. You're getting a lot of riding in for multiple weeks. And if that's not convincing you're ready, then we got to work on something else, because that's what to me, racing comes down to that. I had a girl, she did Lake Placid and it was very scattered training, but she got in a few long rides and she did some things and it was fairly, fairly consistent, and ended up having her greatest Ironman and on the tough course out there, so, and that's what, oftentimes I'll talk with athletes before the race and we'll just go through that. It's like, all right, aside, everything's done. You're done. So how are we going to get the most out of it? And a lot of times that comes down to, the mental game or our approach to different things, or just being smart about how we run. A lot of times, little things like, start the run with, short strides so you're not overtaxing your quads and things of that nature. We just get into that, and I just can't, I've never been able to fathom this concept of just, and again, certain people love it. It's their dream, to go out and ride long, and they love it, and that's great. But like you said that about that 9-hour day, that doesn't even include a nap. Your Saturday is just shot. And, that's kind of, I think, why I ended up quitting golf back in the days, because, man, those days turn into like, it's like all day experience. So, yeah, it's like, how are you enjoying your life? I've been really into, I think kind of always, but I'm really trying to fine tune sort of a micro training cycle here. And I'm still working on the basics. I don't really want to talk about it, but I'm just curious about how it's going to work. It's a little bit more on the frequency versus volume kind of tip. And we've talked about that before. And you've said that, your best time ever running wasn't running. It turned out to be, decent volume, but it was more about the frequency and how things stack and how things add up and how whatever. But I think, like we talk about feel for the water, I do think there's some magic in this, frequency of getting on the bike feel for the bike and feel for how it feels on the bike and comfortability on the bike and handling and all these types of things that matter when you're racing, you know, because you go out and we'll have a camp this weekend, and I'm sure most people won't ride as fast as they hope, but it's a training day and it's with people around and there's cars and there's no close court or, you know, closed sections or any of that kind of stuff. So, you know, how do you judge? How do you judge what's working, right? I mean, how do you believe in a 25-minute run? That's not going to get me anywhere. Well, if you stack enough of them and, you know, with other, you know, I've been riding a lot more than running, and I think it's really helping my run, to be honest.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and you could say, you know, 25-minute runs aren't worth it. Well, then what if you say, well, what if you did one in the morning, at lunch, and one in the evening?
Yeah.
Are they worth it then? Now you're running an hour and 15 minutes. Don't tell me that's not worth it. I mean, like there's, again, like, and that's also, I think, a huge piece of knowing, because again, like some things just don't excite people. You know, a 6-hour ride, that doesn't excite you.
No.
You know, 3.5 hour ride, no. That's hard.
It doesn't either.
doesn't either, but you know,
it depends where it is.
Yeah, it's like more exciting than another. You know, some people, you know, 10 300s pull buoy is exciting. To some people, it's epically boring. You know, some people love the aerobic work on the bike, and some people loathe it. Some people love the long run. Some people hate it. Some people love it. So I think, honestly, I think one of the biggest keys in training is finding out what somebody loves. And also, and I think one of the most underestimated pieces is figuring out, honestly, like what keeps you excited the longest, and what you gravitate towards the most. Because again, I think, you know, if you're an athlete, you know, when you think about, you know, microcycles, you could be like, you know what? I know I can stay focused for like 3 to 4 days and be really energized, but then I really just kind of need like 3 days to just do nothing. Then maybe your training cycle looks like 3 to 4 days of just super focused, you know, training where you do a ton of work, you do a ton of volume, you do a ton of intensity, and you just crush it, you know, maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's your bandwidth. But then Monday through Wednesday, you get to detach. I just, you know, I get back to being work, or I got a few days off, and like I can do this and I can do that. You know, that's how people need to like think through. And then maybe when they're back and they wake up Thursday morning, they're ready to go again. You know, that was like I think the genesis behind the manifesto that Speed Skater put out whatever 2 years ago, who won, you know, gold medal in 2 events. He trained Monday through Friday, and Saturday and Sunday he did whatever he wanted. Hung out with friends, acted like a normal human that wasn't training for the Olympics. And he said a lot of the reason he was able to dial in so much Monday through Friday is because he knew he had a break Saturday, Sunday. And also, again, so much of it is psychological. So much of it is psychological. And I think that's such a piece that we oftentimes, you know, everybody's, again, obsessed about data and numbers and training volume, but like, you know, the psychology behind what gets you excited and can keep your level of excitement, even if, again, in allowing for days you don't have to be excited about, because there's nothing on tap, right? It's to ebb and flow that way, instead of just constantly beating people into the ground, you know, you got to have days that are easy. And if you know an athlete can't go easy, then don't give them a day at all. Right? I get it. You want to work hard. You want to crush yourself. That's just who you are. And it doesn't matter what I put in for training peaks. It doesn't matter. You know, a lot of times I'm like, you know what? I want this to be an active recovery ride, and I'm going to set it at 40 to 65% of FTP, but I'm going to title it straight threshold and see if I can get him to do an active recovery ride, because it's titled threshold. They're going to think it's threshold.
Yeah, but you're going to get a text and like, hey, is there a mistake?
Hey, coach, I think you labeled this one wrong. Yeah, so you're always going to get stuff like that. But sometimes you're like, you know what? Then I'm not giving you anything. I'm not giving you anything. I'm not going to give you an opportunity to chase whatever it is you're trying to chase right now. So you're taking the day off. If we can't get you to, if we can't get your intensity and your volume smoothed out to what it needs to be, then we're going to have a day of nothing and see how that works out. And they might like that. They might hate it. But again, like when you find a level of excitement which is again, like why I think I work with a ton of athletes who are on shifts and they don't think it's ideal because it's not a Monday through Friday 9 to 5, right? There is no such thing really as a recovery week because they don't do enough volume really to really get like a standard week. So there is none. You can't plug that into your, your training. You can't go to Training Peaks and create your annual training calendar, with any kind of an odd schedule. And so they think it's a problem. I think it's fantastic because they can totally unplug from the sport for a certain number of days. Totally. It's like, it's like if not that it is, but it's true, if training is your profession and your job, then when you're away from it, you're totally away from it. Totally. You don't have to think about it because it's not up. I don't have to do it today because I'll rarely put in work that needs to be done. If you're 4 days on, 4 days off, 4 nights on, it's a lot. I might sprinkle in like a 20-minute run, 30-minute run, or optional stuff. But then the light's red during those work days. But then when they're off work, the light's green. And now it's time to get to work. Because they also know I just do this for 4 days and then I'm off. I got to work, but still, I don't have to focus on training. And they see just ridiculously great results on that. And I don't think it's the training structure. I don't think it's some magic that I put in. I think that's the ability to disassociate and then to bring it back in focus and to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I think it also brings like a different level of intention when they do their sessions because they know they've only got 4 days. So there's a little sense of urgency. I got to get this done because if I don't get it in these 4 days, then I got a whole another 4 days while I'm not doing much and I can't do anything. Like that really kind of, they don't have the ability to, you skip Monday and Tuesday. And so you move your Monday swim to Saturday. And now you're pretending like you're going to do a 4-hour ride and an hour swim. And you moved your bike and your run from Sunday because you Saturday, Tuesday, because you skipped those. And now you're moving them to Sunday. So now you're going to do your 1.5 hour long run, your 1 hour interval ride, and then a brick off. I'm like, no, they don't have that opportunity. There is no moving. You're either done, either did it or you either did it or you didn't. And that's what I do. I think that like level of urgency is also like really, really, really important. And I think that's again like something that we underestimate and we don't think of when you just try to figure out and follow every single line of what everyone has done all the time for generation after generation.
Yeah, I mean, I think we love what we're good at. And for example, I'm good at a 6-hour ride about once or twice a year, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what, we were talking about. Are you energized to get up and do a 3.5 hour ride? Yeah. Maybe if you're in 3.5 hour, to 4 hour shape, and you can nail it. I think that's a big piece of it. We got, I don't traditionally go long or running either because it just zaps me, man. And I know that race is going to hit me that way, but I know I can, figure out a way to get through it. I went out for a 10-mile run Sunday, and I felt like, all right, this is in my wheelhouse here. But at about halfway through it, I got bit by a dog, and that put a wrench in the run there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I mean, I think when you look at and this is why I think it's so important to not just to track like numbers and data, but also to track mood. Like how is your mood through these? As you can tell too as an athlete, when an athlete's grumpy, you're like, all right, what's the deal? Athlete that usually leaves 95 sentences in Training Peaks and plots the course of the wind and all fueling every 45 seconds and the the barometric pressure and the overgrown grass at house 1432 that they haven't mowed in 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden they start putting in nothing, or felt good, or didn't have it today. Something's wrong. The numbers could say anything, but when your mood is that, it's also telling you something. And again, like that's just paying attention to those things, and again, not trying to shove a square peg into a round hole makes all the difference in the world.
I agree. Yeah. So anyway, I'm healing up okay, but
I mean, you're always healing, right? Like you got the guy with like the healing power, I feel like.
I hope so.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. And if you give voice to, I'm trying not to give a voice to it, because you're big on, if you give voice and power to an injury, it sticks around longer.
There's no doubt.
Yeah, I totally believe that. The more you talk about it, it feels welcome, the longer it sticks around.
Yep.
You could take the Tim O'Donnell approach.
Well, I forgot what that is.
The year he got second in Kona.
Oh, he didn't run?
He aqua jogged, I think, for like 2 months leading up to race day, and just biked a shit ton. And I think he ran his best marathon up to the point, got second in Kona that year.
Yeah.
Sebastian Kienle, same thing. His Ironman World Championships. He wasn't sure if he could even run, and almost quit like 2 days before the race because of his Achilles. Went out, superb run. Like there's tons of stories out there that I think, when you look at especially with a guy that like you that's been training for as long as you have. I was telling this to another athlete who is got his A races in a few months, and he's had a great year, and his daughter qualified for zones or sectionals or whatever it is. And he's like, yeah, I'm just really worried. I was like, dude, in the scheme of training, in the scheme of the last 14 months, that weekend is going to be a speck on a dry erase board. That's it. Like compared to the work you've done the entire, the last 12 to 14 months, that weekend is irrelevant. Because you've worked so much. You're the sum of all the work that you do, not what you've done just most recently. And so you can navigate around injuries and niggles, no matter what sport. Where there's a will, there's a way. As long as you're willing to be creative and be patient enough. But again, that's where I think creativity is just, it's not used enough in this sport. It's a way to, black and white in some areas that you should be, eliciting a greater level of creativity, which is something you've always been fantastic at.
Yeah, I try, man. I kind of got to keep it going,
100%. I mean, you got it going better than almost, I don't know anybody else on our team that's had an Ironman streak as long as yours.
Yeah, it's not a bad streak for an old ass.
For an old ass.
11. This will be 11 in a row.
Is it 11 in a row?
Mm-hmm. Aside from the COVID year, but they didn't have one. I mean, I probably would have.
You definitely would have.
Yeah, you never know. I was in a pissy mood that year.
Yeah, that's a fact.
If I had to wear a mask, I probably wouldn't have. Oops.
That is a fact. We can wrap it up there, I feel like. We did have a slew of questions roll in from my post earlier. So if you're listening to this today, hop into our Facebook group. We've got a call out for some questions. We can attack those on. We can get started with those on Thursday and knock that out. But as always, love you guys. We appreciate you. Go to our website, C26triathlon.com. There's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need anything from Mike, he's available. Mike at C26triathlon.com. Or if you need anything from me specifically, Robbie at C26triathlon.com.
All right, man. I will catch you Thursday.
Yeah, same time, same place.
All right, dude. See you.
All right, see you, buddy.